please remember that when things get rough, you can always leave over there and come here to Sankofa Books and sit down and relax. Because this is the liberation space and the liberation zone.
As we grow, as we get bigger, we hope that you might be interested. You will check out our website. You'll be on our email list to get some of the up-to-date announcements, and so that we can bring more and more speakers like Dr. Haki Madhubuti here, and have a speaker series each and every month. So I'm going to bring the brother along. Also, this is a free event, but as we know, nothing is free. We will not charge, but we're asking for donations. Just to get our organization growing, and so we can bring on more events and we can bring more people here. More importantly, we're not speaking just to the crowd. We want you to get out there and recruit for us and be the word of mouth so we can bring more speakers here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Haki Madhubuti. You're here, you probably need no background on what he does. He is amazing. He's amazing, and his work is powerful. So, Key.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be here at Sankofa. Haley Garima and I go back a long ways. He's still on the faculty at Howard. I used to be there, and have always admired his and his wife's work. I mean, there's a story to all of this, and oh, that's great. And these two fine filmmakers have been kind of extended family, and it's really, you just can't come to DC and not come here, and to see all of you all out this evening on such a short notice is really a gift in itself. I want to thank you for coming out to support us and to support this fine institution. And I guess I'm one of the few who can say that I was here in the beginning, all right? And to see it continue to grow and to be an integral part of this community is really a gift to all of us, and most certainly it does make my heart feel very good. I want to bring you greetings from my wife, Dr. Safisha Madhubuti, from our children, Laini, Mariama. Mari lives here in D.C. She's up in New York celebrating the birthday of one of her best friends. That's why she's not here tonight. Bomani Garvey. Laini is a PR person at the Schomburg in New York. And Bomani is a civil engineer, and he married his university girlfriend, and she's a lawyer, and they live in Atlanta. And then I'm our youngest boy, Keely Malcolm, 28, dreadlocks, looked like me when I was younger. Women on, just. But I think the one got hold to him now. So he texted his mother a message to his mother, say, well, guess what? I'm going on a vacation to the islands with his sister. And this is the first time, because he's a wandering stone, mountain. So our children are doing well. All of them are doing well. And our schools, we have 4 schools. We have a preschool. Our preschool is New Concept Development Center. One of our elementary schools is the Betty Shabazz International Charter School. And then we have the Barbara Ann Sizemore Academy. We just published a book. And then we have the DuSable Leadership College Preparatory Academy, which is a high school. So we take them at 2.5 years old, all the way up through high school, in an African-centered education. And so we take them at 2.5 and begin to teach them to love themselves. And then we layer that love with knowledge about themselves as well as the world as they matriculate through our schools. And brothers and sisters, I've been doing this for over 40 some odd years. Haley Grima and Mrs. Grima have been at this almost as long as I have. I mean, I don't know how old Haley is. I'm 66, you know, so, you know, I know it. I'm your elder. But anyway, it has been a journey. It's been a journey. And one that has not been easy, but one that I would not trade for anything else. Okay? And so all of my adult life, I've been involved in building what we call these independent black institutions. And so we have the 4 schools, and we have, of course, Third World Press. And this is the news catalog, which I'm going to leave with y'all. I got a few copies here to leave with y'all when we finish up. And Third World Press has emerged as one of the, if not the foremost African American publishing company in the world. And and we own a half a block in Chicago. And just like Haley Garima and his family here are trying to move in this whole level of ownership. And I want to speak a little bit about that this evening because ownership is critical. And you see how critical it is in D.C. when we're losing so much in D.C., especially Northwest D.C., if not all over the district. But you cannot move toward ownership unless you own yourself first. You see, unless you are clear about who you are first in relationship to not only yourself and your people and your culture, you see, because if you're not clear about that, whatever you own, you're going to lose later on anyway. Or you be in the process of owning for somebody else, such as Bob Johnson, you know, with his Negro self. You know, and so it becomes very clear that if we are moving toward ownership, we start very early. And so, and here's another story. Our children, we've been at this so long, we've had our school since 1969. And now we have children who matriculated through our schools, going on to receive undergraduate degree and master's degrees, who are back working with us. You see, that's what institutions are about. They're back working with us, either as teachers or in administration. Okay? And so it becomes very important for us to understand that any people who are in control of their own cultural imperatives about the replication of themselves in a healthy way. In a healthy way. And you cannot build anything on the anti. All right? I learned this early. I mean, if you read Plan the Planet back in 1973, and people say, why, you know, just I say, you cannot beat me talking bad about white people. You can't do that. I'm a poet. You can't beat me at that. But what good does it do? What good does it do? You know what I'm saying? What are you for? And once you define what you're for, then you have got to work doing that kind of work, you see. And so my wife and I and other brothers and sisters in Chicago have been doing that for over 40 some odd years. And my wife, you know, my wife is special. My wife is actually brilliant. You know, I say this all the time. You know, she's brilliant. I mean, that's why she married me. But I'm just saying that she is a brilliant woman. And my wife is a professor at Northwestern University, School of Education, full professor. Last year, she was inducted into the National Education Academy, which is only 225 in the world members. And so she's one of them now, mainly white people. And she was just elected the president of AERA, which is the major research arm of educators in the world, 40,000 members. And so she's on her own avenue at one level. And so we've been married. We just celebrated our 35th anniversary, 34th anniversary. And so the Grimas has sent us this gift. Oh yeah, this beautiful gift of Ethiopian. Was it Ethiopian clothing, Grima? And so I said, oh, this is perfect because I can give it to her and say this is my wedding anniversary present. All right, which I did, you know. And so, but it just shows you how the stars are aligned and how the African spirit works. But she, as well as our children and our extended family, And one of the secrets of our school, and I'm going to get into a little bit formal remarks, but one of the secrets of our school, and I was telling Brother David this earlier, is that our schools work on an African principle of extended family. So, and you all may know this, okay? I mean, I'm Baba Haki, and my wife is Mama Sufficient. And all of our teachers function that same way. So just as I would not allow my biological children to fail, we're not going to allow our cultural children to fail. And so we service over 1,000 children a day. And nobody's giving us nothing. You see, we didn't build these schools on grants from white people or foundation money from white people. It didn't happen like that. You see, so every place I go, when people pay me, the money goes back into developing institutions. And so for me, it was much more important to develop these institutional structures because I came out of that kind of struggle than, say, become famous as a poet. All right, I'm a poet. You know, I'm not going to, because nothing would have happened if I had not been a poet. Poetry informed my life. Poetry allowed me to be in this position to do this kind of work, you see. And so we can look back over 41 some odd years and say, okay, this is it. And now, as I move into the forest of my time, hopefully I can just spend time to write and to continue to do this work. But I'm at Chicago State University. I've been there for 25 years now. And Chicago State has allowed me now to only teach one course a year. And it has allowed me to really do the kind of work in the community and be paid what I consider a fair salary and not give me all this work anymore, okay? So that's what we work for, and that's what white people have. And one of the reasons I went into academia, I saw this early on in my career as a writer. I said, well, how do these white writers make it? And when I looked around, they were all connected to universities or colleges. I say, that's it, all right? And that's what we've been able to do. And I direct the MFA program in creative writing at Chicago State University. Any of you young writers here want to come out and get an MFA, contact us. And as you know, a Master of Fine Arts is a terminal degree, which will allow you to do many things in the community as well as other places. And so, as I come here this evening, after giving greetings to all of you, and to talk about my wife for a minute, I'm going to pose a question to you and just see if what kind of answers we'll get. Can you name, this is the question, can you name one product, commercial product, that has originated in Africa, that is manufactured in Africa and distributed throughout the world from Africa, that everybody in the world, most people in the world, if they have the money, can buy on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And I'm not talking about natural products. I'm not talking about gold. I'm not talking about coffee. I'm not talking about diamonds. I'm not talking about oil. I'm talking about a product that is created, maybe something like glasses or something like that, and sold daily, weekly, and monthly around the world. Just one product. Don't be talking about no shea butter. And don't be talking about no, African fabric. All right. I'm talking about that everybody can use. Everybody use. I mean, saying all the cultures in the world will buy this product and just use it. Okay? Just one product from Africa. And I'm talking about ideas. I'm not talking about the enslavement of African people. No, I'm talking about a product. Okay? Now, let's apply the same question to Japan. Let's apply the same question to Britain. We in deep trouble. Africa is a continent, and Japan is an island. Britain is an island. All right? And so, if you just look at that, it's just one example. And now look at what's happening in Darfur, Congo, Zimbabwe, even South Africa, which is really a problem in South Africa. I think that, nothing has been really solved in South Africa for the majority of African people. And then we go around the world wherever African people reside, you see. And generally we end up finding ourselves in a position where we work for people who don't even like us. We work for people who do not even like us, you see. And let me just say this very clearly. This has nothing to do with hate. I don't hate white people. You know what I'm saying? In fact, when you look at this country, the great majority of poor people in this country are white people. I mean, you begin to look at the people in West Virginia and Pennsylvania that vote against their own interests all the time. And that white supremacy is a learned activity. You see? My opposition is if white children come to our school and if they can get in, it's a lottery. You know what I'm saying? That you had to stand in line often. We got lines off. We'll take them. We're not going to change our program. It's going to be an African-centered program. It's just like when you go to a Catholic school, they don't change their program for you, right? They're going to teach you Catholicism, all right? Go to a Jewish day school, they're going to change the program for you. They think they have an answer. We think that we have an answer as an African-centered institution, and understanding the better principles that originate from Africa, we're essentially going to try to teach our children those principles, those values, Ma'at and so forth, and live them ourselves, because we think that's an answer. It may not be the only answer, but it's an answer, okay? And to try to do it in a way in which allows all of us to continue to grow and to continue to develop. We are living in very dangerous times now. We have a F- president who went through Yale on a legacy affirmative action that his father and family paid for, whose whole family through the Carlyle Group hooked up with Saudi Arabia. And if you're talking about 9/11, if you're going to go after somebody in 9/11, you don't need to go into Iraq, or maybe not even Afghanistan. You need to go to Saudi Arabia, where 19 of the hijackers came from. If indeed that is the answer, all right? And Saudi Arabia, the whole government is corrupt throughout. All right? But they're friends with the Bushes and everybody else of money in this country here. So all I'm posing at one point, we must understand it's much easier to believe than think. So if the right wing uses Reverend Wright's clips from talks that took anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, you can torture anybody. You can pull clips out here and there, but he wasn't telling a lie. All right? This country was not attacked out of nothing. There's a whole history. You see what I'm saying? Most of us don't even understand the history of this country's involvement with Iran, where the CIA in 53, 54 overthrew a democratic elected government. The CIA and British government involved in that, put the Shah of Iran in there. Okay? And so when the revolution came in Iraq, and the Iranian people took the hostages, somehow all the history is forgotten. All the history is forgotten in terms of Saddam Hussein's involvement with Reagan when this country, when Iraq and Iran were going to war. Where did he get the armaments from? That's why history is so important. And that's what we learned coming up in struggle in the 60s. Whether one was working with SNCC, working with CORE, SCLC. We would just exchange books all the time. And just we were reading and studying all the time. All right? And so history is critical. And understanding what has happened to Africa. What is happening in Africa just did not happen out of circumstance. There's a whole history there. You see. And so it's critical and crucial for us who live in a land where we do have opportunities to at least get an education. See. Now, how does one become a decision maker? And this is critical. Haile Gerima is one of the finest filmmakers in the world. But he understands that Hollywood is corrupt to the bone. Is that if you're going to do anything out here, you have got to do it yourself. But even doing it ourselves demands the same kind of quality, all right, and even higher quality and standards than everybody else. Because the first thing people say, you know, you get something, well, that's the way black people do it. That's the way they do it, all right? So we got to always have high standards and quality, you see. And so it gets back to the question at one point. And so this is really what I do know. That black, African-American people in the United States are in deep trouble. And of course the same statement can be made and documented of people of African ancestry in the diaspora. But at this moment, our concern, I'm going to deal with homegrown stuff right here. So like it or not, we are citizens of this vast, complicated, and unforgiving nation. And we take the good, the bad, the ugly, and the unforgivable and make it work for us and other citizens. And this is extremely difficult because underneath the glow of America's success stories are the countless tribal wars for influence and power. So we witness the ever-present subtle and not so subtle political battles between the Democrats and Republican Party. That which is less known are America's religious, ethnic, and tribal battles for economic, political, and cultural hegemony that are fought in the back rooms, state capitals, the boardrooms of national and international corporations, regional, national, and international banking conglomerates, out of sight of camera and microphones in Congress, in the union halls and mean streets of America, American Legion halls, independent think tanks, and those that research one universities across the nation. And still, one of the major draws to this country are the research one universities, higher education. People are just coming here in droves trying to take advantage of higher education in this country. Nor can we underestimate the many European American religious institutions that have made Sunday morning still the most segregated hour in the nation. As that group plan, expect, and demand adherence to their values and worldview. Okay? So all my comment come from over 45 years of individual and organized struggle with white and Negro power and elite individuals, institutions, and governmental structures, dead set on keeping the great majority of black people in a prescribed and predetermined place of inferiority and dependency. And this is a state rather emphatically, that racism and white supremacy is not only alive and well in America, it is indeed a growth industry that only the educationally ignorant continue to make excuses for or attempt to subordinate to the ever-present and also dangerous effects of classism in America. One cannot deny classism in America. I just mentioned Bob Johnson. I can go and name a whole lot of Negroes. All right? However, and this is critical, we cannot, as a people, continue to use white supremacy or racism as an excuse for non-development or non-achievement. It's not going to work. We can't. So as our foreparents confronted white supremacy, they continue to struggle and build counter-racist individuals and institutions, and we can do no less. So I unapologetically claim ownership of America because I firmly believe that before a national struggle for black empowerment can be successful, we have to agree on what we're fighting for. So when I started off talking about ownership, talking about owning yourself first, well, the next, if you own yourself first, then wherever you live, you need to own that, your home. Okay? The community that you're living in, you need to come together and see how can we own this. All right? Where you shop, where you shop at, we need to begin to try to move to ownership of that. At one level, it's about ownership. And believe me, I've been through a whole lot of wars out here, and I kind of understand where, some brothers are coming from and some sisters are coming from. But I've staked, in terms of my rest of my life, on saying, okay, I'm in a solidly black community, the south side of Chicago, Illinois. How can we own most of that? Why? Because we're not going anywhere. 41 million black people, we're not going anywhere. 41 million black people, we're going to be right here. Right here with the possibilities of, great possibilities of Barack Obama becoming the next president. And yeah, I do know Barack Obama. He's been to our schools, he's been to Third World Press. He's a man of integrity, but he's in a difficult situation now. Difficult situation. And what people do not realize about his circumstances is that one of his major weapons is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama, who's from the South Side of Chicago, went through University on affirmative action, and understand that affirmative action may get you into the university, but it will not keep you there unless you can do the work. That's the mistakes that most of us are making. You don't have to feel any less because you got into Harvard on affirmative action, or Columbia, or I went to University of Iowa. I went on GI Bill of Rights. I was a former serviceman. But the point is that the woman is brilliant, and as is he. Okay, and this stuff that's happening with Reverend Wright or with Reverend Flager. I don't know if you saw Reverend Flager's play piece. It was funny. But I did laugh. It was a white boy. He got a black congregation, so he think he's black anyway, So, but when we talk about this ownership idea again, which is not new, it's not new. But one has to understand that culturally and politically and economically, we have got to have a much more of a positive impact on our communities. Why do we go into education? We work in two areas, education and communication. Education, communication. Now, why do we go into education? We felt back in the 60s that those of us who were a part of street struggle, that we would meet, especially SNCC and CORE, we would meet in these churches, and of course SCLC. If you say anything, quote unquote, incorrect, you couldn't meet there anymore. So, I in my own mind away and say, well, I know how to solve this problem. Own something. Buy it, get someplace where we own ourselves, where we can meet anytime we want to. Say whatever we want to say. And so we started buying property back in 1974. We bought our first street property. We actually bought a farm up in Michigan because we were getting ready for the revolution, because we're going to get out of Chicago. Because when it went down, we had, I'm not going to get too deeply in this, we had stored beans, and we knew how to, most of us had become vegetarians by that time. We had stored beans and seeds and everything. We had bought this farm in upstate Michigan. And so we would take the children up there during the summer. But the point is that none of us, for the most part, had any kind of real serious backup plans. All right? And that story still needs to be written, and it has been to a certain extent. But this whole question of understanding and grounded in a healthy history, and understanding who we are in relationship to the people who enslaved us and brought us here. It also must be made clear that black people do not need to stand in line behind any ethnic group to claim ownership of the United States, except possibly Native Americans, who nobody really talk about anymore, you see. But Native Americans, less than 1% of the population, which is basically genocide, Holocaust, all in one. All right. And nothing tears your heart out other than seeing, our own people suffer. I was out in Seattle someplace doing something out in Seattle, Washington, and actually saw a Native American brother begging. Their land snatched from, taken from them, people destroyed, and this brother out on the street begging. And of course we see that all the time with our own people in D.C. and every place else. So it means that we have a lot of work to do if we're serious. Now people say, well, all the time say, well, why, Haki, why do you keep doing this? And there's only one reason that we do this kind of work. The major reason we do this kind of work is because we love black people. And we love children. Children, you see. And I will say this again, children of all cultures. But we work primarily with black people. But any child, children are precious. Any children are precious, you see. Any children, okay? So I'm going to say something that may hurt. I feel and I'm open for debate. I feel that the number one problem facing Black America, number one problem facing Africans and Black people in the diaspora, is abysmal ignorance. Abysmal ignorance. Especially of our own history, and second, an unrealistic assessment of the many, many enemies who are blocking Black development. And this assertion can be tested by asking any 10 Black people out here on the street, any 10 Black people, these 4 questions. 1, how did your people come to America? 10 Black people, how did your people? 2, what have our people or your people, you, been doing since you've been this forced migration or enslavement? Well, you may not want to use those words because that's answer number 1. But the point is what you've been doing since you've been here. Okay? Number 3, what's your name? What's your real name? Okay? And then the 4th question is this. What do you own? I'm not talking about your cars. I'm not talking about your suits and clothes. And, what do you own? All right? 41 million people. What do we own? Yeah. So I think it's quite evident to most thinking women and men of goodwill that the legal mandate of Brown versus Board of Education has failed. You see. And I think that when you begin to look at this whole question of abysmal ignorance, that I think that we have a national leadership who is intellectually comatose, living literally on life support, who at best function as reactive rather than proactive. You see. I mean, how in the hell can you back Hillary? And Bill is a dog. I'm from Arkansas. Bill is a dog, all right? And look at the latest issue of Vanity Fair. There's an article in Vanity Fair, the current issue of Vanity Fair. They got a piece in there on Bill Clinton that just won't wait. It is damaging. It is really damaging, you see. And so I'm saying that, so I have watched for over 40 some odd years this nation's heartless commitment to the quality education of Blacks, Latinos, and other non-white children being relegated to the graveyards of failed promises and political toilets of Democrats and Republicans' real politics. So in 2008, one cannot honestly talk about a truly multiracial society when that society, the great majority of American neighborhoods and schools, remain segregated. So integration as an adopted governmental policy has failed, and pre-1960 apartheid is the norm for most Black Americans. And according to Jonathan Kozo in his recently published book, The Shame of the Nation, The Restoration of Apartheid Schooling in America, the most extreme and shameful example of this fact is the public school system of the nation. And he quotes other people in there, but he talks about the racial isolation and the concentration of poverty. The concentration of poverty among the poorest of our children. And so the figure of extremely segregated Black and Latino schools is a staggering 86% in this country. But my point is not that Black students need to sit next to white students or anybody else to excel. We have debunked this myth time and time again in the African-centered schools that we operate in Chicago. However, it is extremely difficult to negate the overall negative and debilitating effects of concentrated poverty on learning and knowledge acquisition. Now, my wife has a point she makes all the time, and I always give her credit for this because I think it's quite profound. This is our position. If you go to a physician, if you're ill and you go to a physician, you don't expect a physician to give you an excuse that I can't cure you, I can't help you. You don't even expect a physician, unless it's something highly specialized, to even refer you to another doctor. You expect that physician to come up with an answer. Is that not correct or not? Okay? That's our position. You send your children to us, we don't give you an excuse. You send your children to us, then all we ask are 2 things. 1, that you as a parent has got to be involved in that child's education. Which means essentially this. If I go to your home, we're saying that your homes have got to become mini learning institutions. Your home has got to become, so therefore, if I go to your home, I don't even know you, I can go to your home and tell you exactly where you are culturally. I can tell you exactly where you are culturally, not knowing anything about you. Because as soon as I approach your home, the first thing, is it clean? Is it clean? Number one. And as I walk into the living room, what's on the walls? Are images on the wall? Do they reflect you? Do they reflect your culture? Do they reflect your people? On the walls, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm going to your bookcase if you got a bookcase. What are you reading? What are you reading? What's the literature that you're reading? You know, reading to yourself, reading to your children. What are you reading? What are you studying, all right? Then I'm going to your CD collection. What kind of music you listen to? Great black music or booty call music? What kind of music you listening to? And then you go to the DVD selection. What are you looking at? Is it Sankofa? You know what I'm saying? What are you looking at? What kind of, especially the DVDs are wrapped up in brown paper bags. You know, look at that stuff. What are you looking at night? All right? And then to really find out what that family is, go to the children's room. What's on their walls? Darth Vader, Mickey Mouse, and Donald Duck, and you wonder why we're confused. We wonder why we're confused. You see what I'm saying? Because cultural learning starts at birth. Starts at birth. And so brothers, when you're dealing with a sister, and sisters, when you're dealing with a brother, my position is I want somebody smarter than I am. You can't be afraid of intelligent, smart, culturally focused black women. That says more about you than the sister at some point. She lowering her standards to be with you. And so it would be critical that essentially we have to challenge each other. I'll never forget. I mean, when I met my wife, she was, she was completing a master's degree at University of Chicago, and she was doing her thesis on the Black Arts Movement. So, I'm a poet of the Black Arts Movement, so she come in and interview me and stuff like that. Come to her school to talk, and so I went to the school, and some fine sisters there were. So, I took her name and address, and took this sister's name and address, and I think I took all the sisters' name and address. Yeah, all right. And I tell her all the time, but you know what? I called you. All right. I called a few others too, but I really called you. All right. and so we courted for 6 years. I was teaching here at Howard. I would commute between Howard and between D.C. and Chicago every week. I did that for 8 years. I commuted between D.C. and Chicago for 8 years. I had an apartment here, but I would go back and forth, come in on Tuesdays and go back Thursday nights or Friday morning. And we were building these institutions in Chicago. So we courted for 6 years. 1956 to 74, we married. And I'm only telling that story because I'm leading up to something else. So we married, we have 3 children. And when our children became teenagers, it was very clear in building these schools that she was not getting the kind of respect that I felt that she deserved. She would never say anything to me about it, but we were building these African Center schools. We had this African organization, CB, and others. She was never invited any place. They always invite me, but they never invite her. And I would go every place and say, you need to invite sufficient. You need to invite sufficient. So I said, our children were in high school. I said, baby, I know how to handle this problem. You need to go back to school and get a PhD. At first she said, I said, but baby, you were really a scholar. So everything that we've done, you can use this within the context of writing your dissertation. So I talked to the children, her mother lives with us. We live in a 3-generation home. Mother lives with us. And so I said, let's have a vote. Let's vote on this, okay? And so we did. She got outvoted, 4-1. And so she took the GRE, scored very high, got accepted at Illinois, Northwestern, and Chicago. Full ride. All right, all 3 institutions, and decided to go back to the University of Chicago because if you got a PhD from University of Chicago, you don't need no references, all right? She booked 3 years, PhD, dissertation in hand, 3 years. I mean, shit, brilliant, all right? 3 years. And then Northwestern was like standing at the door. Come here. That's what she meant. And she's had offers from Stanford. Stanford offered to give her an endowed chair. She's had offers from Michigan, okay? But we got these institutions in Chicago, and we dedicated, to getting and making them move. Now, what's happening? We got the 4 schools. We took the principal out of the lead school and made her the superintendent. And so we're going to add a school a year. All right. That's what any people do who understands that the children represent the next generation in terms of replicating ourselves. Okay. And so, Savisha, my wife, I tell you the story for the sisters in the house, really. Don't let these backward brothers, the white man's education. Let me tell you about this. I tell you, look, baby, don't go to the University of Chicago and argue with these Neanderthals. Give them what they want because you need the credentials. Now, why does she need the credential? With the credential, you become a decision maker within the context of your area. You become a decision maker. Now, as a decision maker, that means that you are in charge of something, and then within the context of being in charge, you make decisions, and then other people make choices within the parameters of your decisions. You see that? So we got an African-centered program, all right, and we essentially have got this laid out. Now, what I learned this from? In the military, I'll never forget this in basic training, and I write about this in Yellow Black. In 1960, on the way to basic training, I'm reading Paul Robeson's Here I Stand, one of our great heroes, all right? Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and you said, why you go to the Army? Well, I was poor. The Army was a poor boy's answer to unemployment. Okay? I lost my mother at 16 years old. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. When I came out of high school, I didn't have nothing. But anyway, I went to the Army. I'm reading Paul Robeson going to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. The guy sees Paul Robeson's face on the book. He snatched the book out of my hand in 1960. HUAC, House on American Activities. Okay, Paul Robeson had been called. Du Bois had been called. Langston Hughes, all right. And this guy said, what's your Negro mind doing reading this black communist? I never heard a double negative used so creatively, all right. He said, all you women up against the bus. Not no women there. This is 1960s. Women had not come into the military at any serious level. But in the military at that time, they try to break you down, calling you a woman or whatever the case may be. So we jumped up against the bus, and this guy held my book over his head, and he commenced to tear the pages out of the book and gave a page to each of the recruits that use this for toilet paper. What am I doing here? All right. I can't go AWOL now. If went AWOL, where would I go? So I and all the 2 other blacks out of 300-some men, most white men, all Southern, okay, what are we going to do? So I said that morning, October of 1960, that I understand this game now. I understand this, you see. I am never, ever again going to apologize for being black to anybody, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to learn as much about myself nationally, internationally, I'm going to be an expert on me, all right? And the third thing, which goes with the second, I understood the power of ideas. That ideas and the creators of ideas and the carriers of ideas run the world. And we all tap dance to somebody's ideas. If you're a Christian, that's an idea. If you're a Muslim, that's an idea. If you're a Sikh, if you're Hindu, these are ideas. If you're a Democrat, Republican, a Libertarian, a Communist, a Socialist, these are ideas. In fact, if you remember the Sugar Hill Gang, that's an idea. Ideas are powerful. Ideas are powerful, you see. And so what happened, those of us my age, we came out and understood the power of the ideas. And so whether one was part of the Black Panther Party, or of SNCC, or CORE, or SCLC, or the US, it doesn't matter. These are young men and women. RAM, these are young men and women who said, I'm tired of this stuff, and we're going to try to make a difference. And quiet as kept, we did make a difference. We changed America. We changed America, all right? So I'm saying from early 60s all the way up through the 70s, we changed America. Now, Barack has a chance of becoming the first black president because of young people again. That's what's happening. He brought all these young people in. He's got all these monies, $25 and $90 and so forth, from white, Latino, Asian, black people. My wife has a regular amount of money she sends every month. Okay? Because, again, This is changing America. So we got to stand up and say, yeah, this is our country too. I got children. I don't want to see the country destroyed, but you know what I'm saying? We cannot continue to let idiots get in office who take us to a war in Iraq where over 1.5 million Iraqi people have been murdered, have been killed, where a country has been destroyed, where 4.5 million orphans exist, where over 4 million people are displaced throughout the world, especially in Syria and Iran and so forth, and Lebanon, all right? Where over 1 million Iraqi women are without husbands. This guy should be, he's a criminal, he's a war criminal. The whole administration. You see, we got to stop that. You see, why? Because young, poor, black, and white, and Latino children are fighting this war. So you're talking about the 4,500 who've been killed and the 40,000 who've been maimed permanently, like it's like it doesn't mean anything. And I'm telling you, Colin Powell is a traitor to humanity. To go before the United Nations and make this lie. He knew, if we knew it was lying, he knew it was lying. You see? And Condoleezza Rice talking about some mushroom cloud. All these people need to be brought before the war court in The Hague. It's not going to happen unless we do something ourselves. We got to stand up. And just because they black don't mean nothing. And I'm saying the same with Barack. He got to get in and do what's right. Otherwise, we're going to be on his behind. You see? It's not just about skin color anymore. It's about understanding what was right and correct and that which is just. Why? Because these are our children. These are our children. You see? All right, let me just kind of come on down a little bit. And so, children who are poor, children who are hungry, children who are suffering the many and other coercive and destructive consequences of a culture of poverty and otherness are not likely after a certain age to believe in America. To believe that this nation truly is working in their best interest. And at the same level as the nation is working in the interest of white counterpart. If nothing else, Katrina taught us this and made it painfully obvious. You see. How do you destroy a city which is majority black and don't do nothing about it? Except fly over and look down. And that's where we are. But see, the point I'm trying to make at one level is that we have got to begin to make decisions that's in our best interest. And one can only do that if you have self-knowledge and understand the importance of self-knowledge. But self-knowledge leads to self-actualization. And if you don't know, you can't do. You can't complete. You can't move. You can't function. Therefore, this self-knowledge leads also to self-definition that is hopefully grounded in a healthy worldview, understanding of and acknowledgement of the human, economic, political, education, and cultural positions of black people in America in relationship to other people throughout the world, and especially to non-black people. For example, black people's wealth, black people's wealth is 1/11 of the wealth of white people. That's not an insignificant fact. Okay? In our struggle for economic development. It may also be interesting to note that the combined wealth of two men, Bill Gates of Microsoft and Lawrence Ellison of Oracle, eclipses the wealth of 41 million black people. Two men. Two men. So money, whether we like it or not, too often defines black existence in America and drives our life choices of finding employment, education, healthcare, living spaces, recreation, issues of safety, risk-free environments, as well as who we associate with on a day-to-day basis. And so the perfect example of how a culture of poverty, which too often breeds a culture of low expectations, translates to our black youth who are often victims of a mindset that puts too low a value on the acquisition of knowledge. And look, if you can't read, if you can't write, you have no place in this economy. 2.5 million black, brown brothers and sisters, few poor whites, locked up in the nation's prisons. 400,000 come back into the community every year. Out of that 400,000 come out of the community every year, most of them cannot even read at a 4th grade level. What can they do? Except stay in the underground economy and back up in prison, you see. There's a lot for us to do if you say this is the area I'm going to define my life's work and try to eradicate some of these problems. There's a lot of work that we can do, especially if we're educated black men and women and we love our people. You see. And so the average black person had to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Okay? And finally, no less important is one's psychological well-being, mental health. All right? I know black people don't want to talk about psychology, but there's a whole lot of sick people in our community. It's not, I'm seeing these brothers walking up and down these streets talking to themselves, picking up cigarette butts, begging, sisters selling themselves out here on the streets. Yeah. It's hard, man. And I grew up in a community where, my mother was a part of the sex trade. That's my mother. She was brought into the sex trade by a black minister. Okay? And I'll never forget this. I'm about 9 or 10 years old going to, my father had gone someplace. My father he never was there. But the point is that she was not an educated woman. She was just a beautiful woman. All right? We go to this big black church in Chicago. We sit in the front row, and the minister could not take his eyes off of us. Kept up there stuttering, kept looking at us so much. All right? And so when he finished, we were on our way out, got to the front door, he whispers in the ear, and the next week we moved into one of his apartment buildings. And so she serviced this guy every Tuesday and Thursday. And I'll never forget him telling her never to come back to his church. Don't come back there anymore. And about a year and a half later, he fell off. He was running for the National Baptist Convention's presidency, fell off the podium, hit his head, and died. And of course, we were put out, and his wife told us not to come to the funeral. But what women have to do in this culture, just to make ends meet sometime. All right? So I saw it firsthand. So I'm saying this whole mental thing once. So what has happened over the past 30 some odd years, black people have learned a kind of learned helplessness or learned dependency has slowly evaded large portions of the black community. That is, we as a feeling we can't do what other people do to bring about real and lasting life-giving, life-sustaining change in our lives and our communities. Well, I don't believe that. I know we can. So what I'm going to leave you with, which I think that we need to begin to try to move toward, and I ask young people all over the country, what is your liberation narrative? What is your liberation narrative? Any people who are in control of their own culture and imperatives got a liberation narrative. And that liberation narrative puts you on a road to do what you feel is correct and just and right for the great majority of people, you see, that we live with. 1. 2, are you functioning in a developmental community? You see, the brothers and sisters that you function with each and every day, is that community developmental? Because if it's not developmental, you need to get your hat and get out of there. All right? And then number 3, understand that this is a knowledge-based world. Last week, I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul. A tornado is coming through the part of Chicago we live in. So I got to call United Airlines to get out at 6 o'clock rather than 1 o'clock. And so I'm trying to make my reservations, change reservations. I'm talking to somebody in India. You see what I'm saying? So what's happening, the work is being outsourced to India, outsourced to China, and not insourced to the black community, or insourced to the poor white community, or insourced to the poor Latino community. It's outsourced out of the damn country. All right? And so that's what we are. Don't tell me what we can't do, but at some point I do recognize what we can't. I do know what we can't do. You see? And we got to stop making excuses for what we can't do and begin to develop that which we can do. You see? And that requires work. It requires work. When I was in the military, we went at war. This was between 1960 and 1963. All right? And when this guy destroyed my book, I said, okay, I got it. And I read close to a book a day. And each book I would read, I would write a 250-word essay in the book. And concentrating in black and African literature. Just concentrating in African literature. And so when I came out, and went back to school, and when we were fighting for black studies in the universities all across the country, I had a job. And I didn't have a graduate degree, it's an undergraduate degree at that time. But because very few people had this knowledge base, I mean, one of my first positions was at Cornell University. I was 27 years old. But because Cornell was about to explode, and it did explode while I was there, they didn't have no black professors. All right? And so I got the position, but in order to get the position, I had to go through 5 white university professors in English department around a table at Cornell University, going to question me about the area in which I'm supposed to teach in, which is African American literature. And so, and it's good it's really good that I do go through the military, because I learned a whole lot about bluffing in the military. And what happened is that they were supposed to examine my knowledge of African American literature. And so as they went around the table to ask their questions, I recognized something very quickly. They only read 2 books, Native Son and Invisible Man. All right? I peeped that quick. So when he came back for the second round of questions, the guy would ask me a question about Native Son, then I would say, what about his other novels? What about Uncle Tom's Children? What about short stories? What about 8 Men? What about The Long Dream, which is very good, the existential novel? What about? And the guy couldn't answer. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm putting him on the defense now. Go to the next guy. The guy be asking questions about Invisible Man. I started asking question about Hugh and Act, Ralph Ellison's essays. All right. The guy couldn't answer the question. Now the next guy is the chairman of the department. He saw what happened to these 2 guys. I got the job. All right. You see. So my point is preparation, preparation, preparation. If this is your field, then nobody should be able to, take you off course in your field. And that's what we have to do at one level, brothers and sisters. And so this psychological development, controlling our own cultural imperatives, understand what our own liberation narrative is. And so I'm just going to end up with this. Just 5 quick things. I'm not going to go to them because I want you to choose questions. 1. The acquisition of life-giving and life-sustaining knowledge and skill should be priority. 2, children first. I'm not just talking about my biological children, I'm talking about our cultural children. All black children, they are our children. All right? Then by extension, all children are our children. You know what I'm saying? So if you got black children, your child got a white friend or Asian friend or Latino friend, they are our children too. Why? Because we got to educate them also. We can't run from anybody, all right? Number 3, always know more about your own culture than other people. So black cultural knowledge and critical thinking about oneself, people, in the world is vital, okay? Number 4, black women have become the backbone of the black community. So in a world ruled by men, we have been losing black men and boys like poor people's dollars in the state lottery. So we should be in the forefront of demanding and protecting the equality of women and men. Okay. And then to this end, I say we need independent black institutions. And finally, I would just say one thing. This is like a strategy. And I say this to boys all the time. We got black boys walking the main streets of this country. And we did this with our own children. We tell them there are 3 documents you should carry with you at all times. 3 documents. 1, obviously, it's just, state ID. Let's say it's full document, state ID. Our local ID, whatever the case may be. Number 2, library card. You carry a library card because still libraries are free. It's a free depository of knowledge. Library card, and use a library card. 3, they should have a copy of a lawyer's card or ACLU card or some legal aid card in their pocket. Okay? That's the 3rd thing. And then 4th, they should have a pocket-size copy of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence. Why? Obviously, the idea is self-explanatory. But you searching, these Neanderthals cop out here searching the brother, throwing them up against the wall and everything. and finds a library card. What are you doing with the library card? Well, I read. I use the library. He finds an ACLU card, his lawyer card. Well, what are you doing with it? That's my lawyer. That's my lawyer, right? So the guy began to change his whole attitude now at one point, hopefully, because if he got any kind of sense. And then when he keeps searching the brother and he finds a copy of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, well, I'm a citizen. You see what I'm saying? That we've got to teach our children to be a little bit bolder, but in the right way. You can't challenge these guys to a fist fight when they got guns. All right? That's just like, at some point, any country outside of, see what I'm saying? The second major industry in the United States is armaments, weaponry. You cannot beat the country physically that you're buying weapons from. The only way they can be beat is that that the country is in your land. You know what I'm saying? You know the terrain, and therefore you determine the battle plan. All right? But conventional, these guys just gonna drop bombs. They didn't defeat the Vietnamese, and they're not gonna defeat the people in Iraq. It's not gonna happen. It's a mess over there. It really is. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, whatever questions you may have, I'll try to answer them. Yes, sir. Oh, about those, what the young brother should carry with? Oh, yeah. All right. The first one was the acquisition of knowledge. We should be in the acquisition of knowledge business. We should know, and brother, this gets back to, again, being an expert in your field. All right? And we can actually be experts in more than one field. You don't have to just say in one field. You can be experts in more than one field. And then the second thing was to understand cultural knowledge. That you have to, second was children first. Children first. And this is so critical. Oh, and we deal with children first, your own children first. If brothers got children, you got to take care of your own children. You got to take care of your own children. If you got a problem with the mother of your children, you need to solve the problem. You need to solve the problem. You see. And most brothers, including myself, we go through this stuff, but you got to solve the problem. The child is first. That child is first. Okay. And number 3, always know more about your own culture than other people. And it begs a good example of that, how black culture just travels. And that we influence the world, but we don't control the culture. We don't make the money off the culture. Hip-hop is a good example. Black music is a good example. We don't make the money off our own culture. Okay. But know more about your culture than anybody else. But I think they're these critical markers in black culture. I'm talking about basically literary culture at one point. That, who is Kwame Ture? All right. Who's John Henry Clark? Yeah. Who's Barbara Sizemore? You see? I'm saying these markers, these people who just have made a tremendous, you see. I mean, who's Huey Newton? Who are these people? Why are they important to us? Okay. So it's very important. And then what was the other? The number 4, black women. Okay. I think that too many of us have kind of bought into the lies and fantasy. You see, one reason that you find, and understand, and not a significant number of black men deal with white women. The reason we kind of think that happens is because those most noticeable who are dealing with white women got a little bit of money. You see, and then what happened with them? The white women choose them. Okay, and they go after them with a passion. But most brothers want to deal with sisters. Okay, and we have to understand that. And then I'd say to this end, we need independent black institutions. And I feel that, let me give you another perfect example. I think it's a very good example. One of the reasons that the Jewish community is so powerful in this country and in the world is because they are a Jewish people. All Jews are not rich. There's a significant number of Jews who are poor and middle class. Okay? But why is it that in America, where you have less than 6 million Jews, why is it that their influence is so awesome? That's because they know who they are. And therefore develop institutional structures to replicate that, institutional structures to push their ideas. And so now there are more Jewish senators and congresspeople than blacks. And we outnumber them 5 or 6 to 1. And then 2, Jewish people coming out of Europe decide to go into areas of influence and power, such as law, finance, education, and medicine, and real estate. That's it. So you don't got 6 million, but in terms of billionaires in the country, they represent maybe about 25% of the billionaires in the country. You see? And so therefore their voting power is heightened because they can flood a community, say Cynthia McKinney's community down in Atlanta, and run somebody against her. You see, or any place else. And so we get up and talk bad about Jews and, anti-Semitism and so forth, not understanding that that's just a tactical political move in their best interests. So rather than get angry, just understand what happened to you. And say, well, how can we stop this from happening again? That's all. And so in Chicago, I can say the same thing about the Irish or the Polish. The largest white community in Chicago are the Polish. And that's the largest Polish community outside of Poland. All right? And so the Polish and the Irish have come together in Chicago to maintain control. And then they co-opt the Negroes and the Latinos to make sure that Daley stays in. You see?
I just want to say, it's always a pleasure to see you so fulfilling. But one of the things I think that needs to be added to that list is the health crisis that we're seeing. I mean, that's just with HIV, AIDS, obesity.
Yeah, sure.
Cancer, diabetes. I mean, that's just
HIV. Yeah, you're right. Well, I agree. I'm a vegan. If it runs for me, I'm not going to chase it. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, people call me the weed eater. It's true. I don't eat no fish, no poultry, no beef, no nothing. I don't eat nothing that carries blood in it. No ice cream, no milk, no, you know what I'm saying? I'm on vegetables. And Brother David, who picked me up today, tell you, the first thing I said, well, take me over to Whole Foods. I got to give me some wheatgrass. I'm trying to give me some fresh carrot juice with some garlic in it. 16 ounces of carrot juice and garlic and wheatgrass, 2 ounces of wheatgrass every day. And I bike. I'm a cyclist. I do 100 miles a week. Cyclist, all right? I can't get sick. So you're right. The health problem in the black community is deadly. And so all you see up and down here, fast food, McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and all this stuff, that stuff will kill you. It is killing us. And the obesity problem in the black community, it's out of control. It's out of control. So you're absolutely correct. And the growth industry in the world is basically a health industry. It's basically a health industry. So you're right. You're absolutely correct. Yes, son.
Can you give 5 steps or 5 pieces of advice for either self-publishing or developing your own publishing company?
Okay. Number 1, and Paul Coates can help. Paul Coates is a founder and owner of Black Classic Press, which is one of the major black book publishing companies in the country. Last year, close to 300,000, 400,000 books were published. About a half of those books were self-published. You see. And I would strongly suggest most of the self-published books out here are not worth nothing, not worth the paper they're printed on. It's even worse than booty call literature. You see? Even worse than the stuff that Zane puts out there. All right? I call it soap opera literature. You see, that's what's out there. So I would think if you think that you can write, go to somebody who understands what good writing is first, and let that person look at your manuscript, give you some advice and so forth. Most self-published writers need a serious course in writing, 1. Number 2, if they can write a little bit, they may need an editor. Okay. But the other point is this: is that self-publishing books is almost like coming making your own CD. It's just that easy. You got a computer, you got the equipment. That's why now the whole industry is moving toward books on demand. The whole move now in the industry is one, and it's going to get serious. They're going to stop. They're stopping. See, the Borders Books is up for sale. It's about to go out of business. Barnes and Noble is the last chain that's making serious money. Independent bookstores, we've lost over half the independent bookstores. We used to own 3 bookstores in Chicago. They're gone. Okay. And what the publishing market is now, they're moving toward giving no more advances. They're trying to cut out advances unless you're a proven selling author. Okay. 2, they're telling the bookstores no more returns, which means that you publish a book and you sell it, and the bookstore buys it. Generally, bookstores had this safety net that if we didn't sell it in 30 days, we just send it back. Well, the whole move now is to stop that altogether because they lost millions and millions and millions of dollars of people sending books back. You see, so it's a very difficult field. Very difficult. So publishing is like you make money pennies off the dollar. Okay. I don't want to discourage you, but I'm just saying that you got to be very realistic. So I would say go to over to Howard Library, look up anything on publishing, especially anything that's been published on publishing within the last 3 to 4 years, and just study the field. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was listening to your point about taking care of and educating all children. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was somehow when you talk about black teachers, when you try to talk to black teachers about the need to reach black students, they start talking about the need to reach all students, and then they don't reach the black ones.
Right.
So how can we get teachers or black teachers to understand the importance of reaching black students,
Right.
and not use the need to reach all students as a way to confuse them, which then leads back to black students always missing out?
Well, it would not be confusing at one level. You see what I'm saying? If the teacher's in a all-black situation, then it's not about reaching all students. It's about reaching those black students there. Okay, that's number one. But number 2, and I say this advisedly, the great majority of teachers, especially if they've been in the profession under 5 years, don't know how to teach. They're in a learning mode. Okay? And my wife is very good on this. She's just saying that just all these horrible teachers out here, they put them in the black community, where they become apprentices in the black community, and they mess over our children for 4 or 5 years, and then they go back to their own community someplace else. All right? DC, its school system is black. Chicago, its school system is black. Detroit, its school system is black. All right? Many of the young white or young Asian or even young Latino teachers, if they're not among their own children, for the most part, they're afraid of black children. There's deep fear of these teachers, young teachers coming into the black community, you see. And when you're afraid of the people you're supposed to be teaching, no teaching is going on. You're just trying to do a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or 8 to, 8 to 3 or 8 to 2 and get out of there. You see, that's a problem. So this is why I open up with that for us, it's around the love of these children. And that we're not going to allow them fail. If you're not going to allow your own children to fail, you're going to allow your cultural children to fail. You see? So therefore, you have to build an environment where that happens. So now we're in the process of training new teachers for the fall that we be bringing into our system. We are the Bethune Institute, where we train teachers to come into our system during the summer. And then for new teachers, we put a master teacher with that teacher. We don't put them out there in the classroom by him or herself. You see, to teach.
So you're saying the reason they use that as a way to confuse the issue of teaching black students is because they can't teach in the first place?
Right. Many of them can't teach. And what they would say, it's the victim analysis. They use the child as the victim. The child becomes the victim. So the child can't do this, a child can't do that. That's not the problem. It's the teacher in many cases. 90% of the time it's the teacher. Let me take this sister and I come to this brother. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I can relate to everything that you're saying because I run an activism program here at NCC, a public charter school in high school. And of course, the students are predominantly black, and teachers staff is predominantly white, while the support staff is predominantly black. And we are going through all the same issues that you're touching on. And one of my questions, because they are high school students, I feel like our students are really indoctrinated into this system. And when you talk about that sort of ignorance in terms of not knowing where they came from and not knowing where they're going,
Right.
I find it really difficult to try to reach those students, especially at their age.
Mm-hmm.
While I understand the importance of independent schools, I'm definitely an advocate for that. How do you maneuver the system that currently exists, and how do you reach the students that are already affected by the school system that we have now?
We were highly criticized from many of our brothers and sisters, what I call the black brothers and sisters, for taking the charter. And the reason, and we had serious discussion about this in Chicago, because we're not only neophytes. And our decision was, that is our tax money. I pay a whole lot of taxes. You see. And so we said, okay, if it's our tax money, if other people going to use our tax money to miseducation our children, we're going to use the tax money to educate our children. And that's what we did. All right. Now, to answer your question, what we do, our schools open up at 7 o'clock and they close at 7. So that means that we got, time before school starts, and we definitely got time after school starts. Because in many cases, we got single parent, mainly women, but some brothers who are single parents also. And they work in these long hours, so we got the children all day. And all of our lunches are vegetarian. Vegetarian lunches. We got an award for that. We got an award from that. To get back to what you're saying. Okay, and then we give them after school snack and everything too. See, but the point is that the learning is all day long. Okay, lifelong. Now, what I suggest in your situation is to try to find other like-minded sisters and brothers and begin to pull a coup over there. Begin to give a coup. And understand the system. You got to learn the system. Because, see, when we first applied for the charter, the guy turned us down, who was head of the charter system. And our board said, well, let's forget it. We've been independent. I said, no, we're not going to do that because it's our money. So I'm saying we all came out of the 60s. Let's go to war again. That's all. Let's go to war. And so what happened, Paul Vallis was at that time was the superintendent. He went to Philadelphia, now he's down in New Orleans. So I saw Paul Vallis out of the function, and I went after him publicly. I asked him, I said, why is it that we don't have a charter? We've been doing this. He didn't know, who we were. And he whispered in somebody ear, somebody else whispered in his ear. But I had told all the brothers that I knew to come with me. And some of these brothers, older brothers, had their grandchildren in our school. And he saw I was surrounded by all these men, so he didn't know what to make out of that. And he said, we need to meet Monday because we got 3 charters left. We need to meet Monday. I said, deal, okay. So we went in Monday, and his second in command knew my wife because my wife is a consultant in the Chicago public school system. And she uses her birth name. Well, she's Dr. Carol Lee. Okay. And so we saw her there, and when they had told her that she was actually the board chair, we walked in there because I had everybody call this guy over the weekend, and we walked in, we had the charter. We didn't have to do anything else, no negotiating, nothing. Because I was ready to jump into this guy's chest. All I'm saying to you is organization. We got to organize. I don't care what you are involved in at every level, you got to organize. And the only thing I didn't get a chance to go into is really this whole economic thing, this money thing, this subprime loan. Most black people don't have no idea how this came about. And what the white people are telling us, and they don't dwell on this at all, but it's all about greed. It's all about greed. You get these subprime loans to people who can't even afford to buy a car. Okay? And then what these bad boys do, they take the commission off that, and then they bungle these loans and take another commission, sell it to somebody else who will know what's happening, and boom, this thing exploded worldwide. Worldwide exploded. We're in a recession. We're in a deep recession right now. And so all is connected. So again, if we can't even explain what's happening economically, we're not going to be able to talk about where we come from, where we are, where we need to go. And so all of us need to be involved in a meaningful way in changing our communities. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. You see? And let me just say this. We can do this. We can do this. You see what I'm saying? This is a perfect example. Right on Georgia Avenue. This place is probably worth $3 or $4 million right now. I'm sure he's had offers. Because all this property now is just, it's exploding on Northwest D.C. And that's what we need to do. But we need to come together collectively, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I don't care if it's all women. I don't care if it's all men. I don't care if it's a mixture of both. And you pool your resources and say, okay, we're taking this block. And we got men and women who understand finance among us. Just got to find them in the area. We got a brother who came from the West Coast, who's our financial officer. And our budget in our schools is somewhere around $7 million. Okay? And we do not stand for corruption at all. And we got people watching the books who watch the books. Okay? And we just not, because we cannot, and my wife nor I, we don't take a salary from the schools or from Third World Press. I work at Chicago State University. She's at Northwestern. That's how we earn our living. So I'm saying, so therefore, the institutions that we develop, whether it's Third World Press or our schools, that's a service. That's a service. That's not the model for everybody, but it's the model that we use, okay? But you got to watch the money. And the money's out there for good work in the black community. But we got to deal with the corruption. The corruption in the black community, small-mindedness in the black community. You see? You got to have honest, serious men and women who are not corruptible. Yes, son.
I'm glad to go after the sister because my question kind of ties in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Council of Independent Black Institutions.
Right.
How do you feel that the charter school movement has affected the black independent school movement? In the first part of my question. The second part, you mentioned about holding Barack Obama accountable.
Yes.
As you know, Bobby Wright said, the only contradiction in the black community is there are no contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
How do we hold our so-called leaders accountable for their actions, and how will we hold Barack Obama so he doesn't turn into like Uju Sesi Seko or Nelson Mandela?
Well, I don't say Nelson Mandela. I say Colin Powell or even Mugabe to a certain point. I think Condoleezza Rice. I mean, Nelson Mandela was locked down for 20-some odd years. He was locked under the jail. So the brother came out and did what he can do. All right. The first part of your question, CB, we were not put out of CB, but we were kind of ostracized once we took the charter. And so my wife and I, and we were one of the we were founders of CB, okay? But I said, we cannot argue with our brothers and sisters. If that's their position, that's their position. Don't criticize it, just keep on going. And that's what we feel. So I really cannot speak on what CB is doing or not doing. All I can say is I hope they're doing well. Okay? Now, Barack Obama, what's happening today, this week, we're developing a website, domain, and it's artists and writers for Obama for president. And I'm trying to get everybody to tie into this, to sign up to the domain, and to donate somewhere between $25 and maybe $100. We're going to get artists of all stripes, black artists, Native American artists, women artists, white. It doesn't matter what culture, what race, it doesn't matter to sign up for this. Because I want us as artists and writers and filmmakers and choreographers and dancers and, because see, all of the campaigns, there are no artists involved. They don't hear our voices. So I've talked to Harry Belafonte, I've talked to Lou Gossett, I've talked to Ruby Dee, I've talked to Wesley Snipes, I've talked to all these people, to get them to sign on to this, and which they have. All right. as co-chairs. I've talked to a name you may not even recognize, John Dinsmore. Anybody who knows who John Dinsmore is? John Dinsmore was a drummer for the Doors. But this guy is very conscientious. I met him at a men's conference out in the woods up in Virginia. He come all the way from California and brought 2 brothers with him. So anyway, but he's very conscientious. And so what we're going to try to do is get all these artists and writers to sign on to this domain with all their names. Then we ask them to list a poem, or a piece of artwork, or anything that we can eventually publish as a book. And then in the fall, we're going to do fundraisers all over the country. DC, Chicago, West Coast, New York. And then the money will go for a full-page ad in the New York Times, the Nation magazine, Progressive magazine, a black publication, of all these artists that's backing Obama for president. And the reason for this is saying now we are on record. Okay, we're on record. I know the guy, a lot of people who sign on know him personally. And so that's one way we will come out publicly and whoop him. You see, public and whoop him. Because I have no allegiance. I like the guy. He's an intellectual. He wrote his books. He is an intellectual. He's actually, he's very, very smart. This guy ain't no dummy, as well as his wife. And I do believe he's going to try to do the right thing. But what happens is that you're surrounded by leeches. You're surrounded by vultures. And so therefore, we got to be out there saying, no, my $95, my $25 went to elect you, okay? And we will organize and make coalitions with anybody around that which is right and just and correct. And that's what it's all about. This is 2008. So we're not buying into corruption. We're not buying into this famous stuff. People want to be famous, That's out of here. That's out of here. All right? What we want, young brother, is to live a life where our children can smile. Where all children can smile. As I talk to you this evening, millions and millions of children going to bed hungry every night. Every night. And a lot of them are right here in this country. You see. But I'm convinced that we can change this. I believe it, we can change it. Young people can change it. And see, I did graduate work at the University of Iowa. I used to teach at the University of Iowa. And when Barack won Iowa, I told my wife, watch out. Iowa is 9.5% white. Okay, when I was working on a graduate degree from Iowa, I wasn't going to live in Iowa City. All right? So I drove 500 miles a week for 2 years. All right? I was teaching, Darwin Turner was head of the African American Studies Department, and Darwin Turner gave me a job, and I worked on MFA there at the workshop. And then when I finished up, Darwin said, can you please just stay another 6 months, another semester? And I was teaching, I got a job at Chicago State. So I taught at Chicago State. And Neanderthals at Chicago State beat me up. They gave me 4 and 4. That's unheard of in the university. But I wanted to come back home. So I took it. And I was still teaching at the University of Iowa. So I don't take no excuses from students. Because I know what you can do if you're really serious about an education. Okay? Yes, anybody else? Yes, sir. Right. Look, Michelle, number one, she can't pass for nothing but black, number one. Can I get amen on that? Well, Sonia said a woman, okay? One. Number two, she gladly tell you that she got into university on affirmative action. She don't back up on that. And like I said earlier, is that you may get in on affirmative action, but affirmative action is not going to keep you there. She's brilliant. Barack followed her to Chicago. That's how he came to Chicago. And he went into, working in community action. But she was the killer. You see. And she is an intelligent woman. She is serious. And got those 2 little black girls too. All right? And they just got money when he became a senator. That's when they got the book contracts. They bought the new home. They got a big home in Hyde Park. It's in Hyde Park in the black community. But she's very serious. She's black, and her family's black. That's why I say she's a secret weapon. And she's intelligent. She can go head to head with anybody, including Barack Obama. And you saw when he got it, all right, that's her. You say, I'm tired of running from these people. Let's show our stuff out here. You see, and she's smooth. She as he is he. He's smooth. And all of this, even stuff with Trinity, all that was well thought out. Because what happened is at one point you say, okay, you keep your eye on the prize. Okay? And people at Trinity many people at Trinity felt he did the right thing. Especially after Flager came there and acted a clown himself. And so last week he met with black ministers in Chicago. And just trying to, make sure everything is cool, everything is okay. So, brothers and sisters, I think that he's going to take it. Why do I think he's going to take it? One, I think he's the most qualified, number one. But number two, when you look at the demographics, I think the major demographic that he will have difficulty with probably are white men, so-called working class white men, and the Spanish-speaking Latino community. And he won't have a problem with them in Chicago or Illinois, but other parts of the country he may have a problem with them. So that's just two. The women issue, the white woman issue, let me be very clear about that. The white woman issue, a lot of it depends upon what Hillary does. But he got a lot of serious white women in his campaign who are not backstepping at all. You see. And Hillary got a lot of baggage in her stuff. She got a whole lot of baggage. Oh, when I was coming in this morning, I was at the airport, and I always dress, because of Haki Madhubuti, because I know I have to get angry sometime and talk to these people in ways in which I don't want to, but I don't want them to think that I'm just the average Negro, all right? So I'm always clean when I travel. I didn't change clothes when I come in. I'm laid out, okay? But what happened, we were at the gate, and about 14 people go on the flight before we were allowed to get on the flight. And I have these special privileges on United, so I always get like an exit aisle seat. So I got my seat, and what's sitting over on the right is a white boy, okay? White man. And and the guy's a Secret Service. So I pulled this book out of my case that I'm reading. And I'm reading Bad Money by Kevin Phillips, his latest book, okay? And the guy said, I've read this stuff before. I said, oh, yeah. And he said, well, he asked me, are you a professor? Are you a teacher? I said, yeah, I'm a professor. He said, I thought so, okay? Because I had a different outfit on. I wear a vest and all this stuff. Anyway, he started talking. He said, I'm Secret Service. I said, what? He said, yeah, all these people sitting around over here. That's how we got on early. All right. Now, this was a white man who basically he was in the military. He's a first sergeant in the United States Army Reserve. He's done tours over in Iraq. But they called him back after 9/11 just to fill up full-time Secret Service. And the guy sitting across to me is a black man. He's Secret Service. All right. And I said, well, what's happening? Where y'all coming? We just came from Barack. He said, we were his detail for the last 4 or 5 days. We just getting some time off because we've been doing 12 hours, okay? So I'm listening to him again, this. I said, well, who's going to win this election? And he said, well, it's time for a change. I said, well, who's going to win? He says, Barack's going to win. Well, I said, why do you think he's going to win? He said, because we've been detailed with Clinton, we've been detailed with McCain, and we've been detailed with Barack. And the only one they had to stop people from coming in was Barack. He's filling stadiums. Nobody's coming here at McCain. And Hillary Clinton can't fill up a stadium. She can't even fill up a gym, he's saying. And only until the last part of it, when all these women began to come out, that she began to get any kind of play. But he said they have to stop people from coming in and putting microphones outside the stadiums for Barack Obama. He's going to win this. And I asked him the question. I said, well, what about his protection? What about assassination? He's saying, we have more protection around this guy than we got around the president. This is a white boy. This is what he's saying, all right? And then, the brothers next to me on the other side of the aisle say, well, what's happening, with Barack? Now, he cool, he's not saying nothing. He's not saying nothing, But see, it shows you how comfortable the white man is. Because he can say what's on his mind. The brother just goes, I don't know. Yes, this brother, then this sister. How you doing? Go ahead.
Peace. I just wanted to say that, first of all, brothers like yourself and Holly over here is, a real example of black manhood as far as like the work that y'all have done, because I've met a lot of great people that I admire, works I've grown up in love. And when I met them, I'm let down because, they burnt out activists, they don't take care of the kids, they destitute and so forth. So I was going to publicly say that I think gives y'all a balanced, true blue, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
But with that said, I was in Minneapolis last week at the new media reform conference.
I was there.
You was there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get a chance. Oh, yeah, I said you did a thing at the exhibit hall, and I just missed you. Or you was another.
No, I was not right.
You at the event. You was at another location.
Right, that was another location.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I saw your face.
Yeah.
Had you big. That's what it was. So anyway, clean city.
Yes, yeah, it's a strange place. Yeah.
I come to find out that they said that if a terrorist act happens between now and the election, that George Bush has the power to suspend the election. If that happens, and being a brilliant mind, y'all, what do you suppose that we should do at that point?
One, I don't think that's going to happen. And
But
two, if it does, I don't think that. I think that we coming to a point in this country where white people are sick of him. White people are sick of Joe. He's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment internationally. He can only go a few places: Germany, France, and Britain. All right, and a few places in Africa that needs help so badly they just accept almost anybody. But he is an embarrassment. Okay, so, and two, you have a significant portion of, just like the Supreme Court has voted against him the last couple of times. Another just came down in terms of Guantanamo, and so this is. It's highly unlikely. One. Number two, what I understand is you've got Hamas and other quote unquote radical groups who are really waiting to see what happens. You see, they actually think that they're gonna get a fair hearing with the Barack Obama in power. Okay. So you have two sides of the coin. So if something does happen, then it might be what they call false flags, that the Secret Service or the CIA or the FBI initiates it themselves. Just like they're saying that 9/11 is false flag. You see what I'm saying? There's a whole body of literature out there that basically is stating that when the buildings came down, you had explosions all throughout the buildings, okay? And they came straight down. And that a plane going into them, the way those buildings were built, it shouldn't have came down like that. So you got this you have a very large contingency of mainly white people who are pushing this false flag theory. All right, and I think there's some merit to that. All right, yeah, I do. And so I'm saying that's both sides of it. So I'm saying you got these group of people who are keeping their eye on stuff. Then you got a lot of people in law enforcement who really are just sick of the Bushes, sick of Cheney. Okay, just like this white man that I was talking to on the plane. Why would he talk to me that freely? He don't know who I am. And he asked me my name. I said, Haki Madhubuti. He didn't blink. He just kept talking. And but he was saying, and he's a divorced white man, got a 16-year-old son. I know everything about him. He just told me everything. But the point is that he's tired himself. He said, he said we should not be in Iraq. He said, if we were going to go after these guys, we should have went right into Afghanistan, okay? And I said, no, you shouldn't have went to Afghanistan. You should have went to Saudi Arabia. That's where 19 of them came from. They went to Saudi Arabia. But you're not going to mess with Saudi Arabia because the Saud family, who are in cahoots with the Bush family, through the Halal group, okay? That's not going to happen, all right? So, again, brothers and sisters, it's what we know that hurts us. You see, this is why I study. You know, why don't I read Kevin Phillips? Kevin Phillips used to be one of the major white conservatives in this country. But because of the bad governance of his party, he done changed. He's a libertarian now. And you read his last 3 books, he is on them like death. You see, the book he did on, let me just give these titles. You know, and the only reason I'm recommending because he's an insider. It's like this guy that used to be the editor of Harper's Magazine, Louis Lappin. Louis Lappin comes from money, all right? But somehow he got a conscience, and we used to say the people who turn against their own class commit class suicide. He said he still got a little bit of money, but he has death on him. He did a piece about 4 or 5 years ago on how the white right wing retook media, just took it from the left, who never really owned it, but they just locked everything down. The universities, media, books, everything, okay? And Kevin Phillips, look up American Theocracy and American Dynasty. Those last 2 books of his. And then, of course, this one, I'm just started reading this Bad Money. So, that's all I'm saying, brother. I think that, yes, there's a chance of that, but I'm saying other people are going to question it another way. They're just not going to accept it that somebody... You see what I'm saying? How do you go have a war against terrorism? You see what I'm saying? That these are terrorist, quote unquote, terrorist acts. But who you have a war with? So we've been sold a bill of goods because this goes on infinitum. You know what I'm saying? And people are beginning to grow up because their lives, gas is over $4 a gallon. On the West Coast, and by the end of the summer, it's going to be $5 a gallon. People are hurting in this country, and it's the Bush and the Cheneys who are gas people, who are energy people, in office. Okay, so I'm saying that there are men and women who are not necessarily of our culture, but who are wise enough to say we got to get rid of these bad boys because they've ruined this stuff for everybody. You see, and enough poor whites who will begin to understand that if bread is costing me $2 a loaf. Gas is $5 a gallon. I'm paying the same money as the black people's. You see? Ain't no discrimination there. We all paying the same kind of money. So you better get some sense out here and to begin to organize together. You see? But I'm saying that we cannot move toward serious coalition building unless we unite ourselves first. You see? The sister back in the back. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Go ahead. How you doing, dear?
I work at Whole Foods Georgetown, and we're surrounded by the embassies, Shades and Sopranos. We have international, like the pilots and stewardess. They stay in local hotels, come in every week from the Netherlands, Brussels, all these different places on a regular basis.
Right.
So and we have and we also have young families.
Right.
So I work in the whole body department, so it's the vitamins with books and all of this. I was putting up new magazines, and this is related to Barack. And so I'm putting up magazines. This is, Rich Neighborhood. And the magazine has Barack on it.
Right.
Put the magazine up. This white lady, a little girl, like 2 or 3 years old. Put the magazine up, and she was like, look, you know who that is? You know who that is? Rock. Little kid. 2 or 3 years old, so that's his impact. It's also related to what you talk about the writers and artists. When they submit their work, include work that children will read also.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They're going to buy it.
Absolutely.
They're gonna read it. But I mean, no one is going to, no white woman, of upper class is going to have her little kid and say, you know who that is? Hillary. Or you know who that is.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
never saw that before.
Well, one of the reasons Hillary did not win this is because she felt that she was entitled. And that by the first big primary in January, it would have been all over. So she was destined to be the queen. And so this skinny black guy with big ears come out who he speaks in sentences. Right? He speaks like you got a brain. And these young kids, college and even working class kids who hear him, they feel, I'm saying, they have not grown up with this racial baggage that we grew up with. They are freer. These people, they will vote against what their fathers and their mothers want them to do. All right? And so, I mean, so I was in Minneapolis last week like this brother was. Minneapolis, St. Paul is an interesting dual city. It's one of the few cities in the country, well, let's say it's very clean, but it's one of the few cities in the country that has a very hyper arts community. A lot of people actually leave other cities to go to Minneapolis, St. Paul to get into the arts community there because they got tremendous support for the artists. Tremendous support. Let me see. Any other questions? Let's see. Okay, this brother, that brother, and then that brother. Okay, go ahead.
I wonder about the impact of the multinational or the transnational corporations.
Right.
I think that, and I'm not from Washington.
Yeah.
I was born in Arkansas.
Okay.
Grew up in Alabama.
Teach.
But one thing that I've found interesting since I've been here, the lobbyists and associations and whatnot, the wealth
Right.
that's here. And then you've got the Congress doling out the $5 or so trillion a year and all of the
tremendous,
embassies
yeah.
with people coming in to try to get a piece of the action and whatnot. But that's the thing that, again, the transnational corporations and the multinational corporations, I'm a little concerned about those powers homing in on.
I think that it is a serious concern. What I think, what I do know for a fact, Obama has working with him men and women who understand that also. That's why they took this very shrewd tactic against Hillary. Okay, their ace in the hole with dealing with Hillary and Bill, or called Billary, was that they knew that Bill could not open up his taxes. Because if his tax thing was ever opened up, you would see the contradictions that you would not believe. And that's why I say go to the Vanity Fair article, because it has a lot in there. This month's issue, the current issue. Julianne, the actress who was adopting all the babies, what's her name? Yeah, she's on the cover. Okay, pick it up. It's a devastating piece of work. He had called the guy who wrote the piece slime. That's how devastating it is. So I'm saying if he had to at any point open up his taxes, there's no way in the world she could win. It's just too conflicted. It's just too conflicted. Taking money from everybody. You're talking about the lobbyists and stuff like this? Now, the smart thing that Barack Obama has done is he's not taking any money from the lobbyists. He just had to let the guy go who was heading up his the campaign for vetting the vice president because he was conflicted. Okay? And I think that, and then taking the small money from the populace. So you build a different kind of movement when you are building your movement on $25, $95, $100, and so forth. Okay? They know that K Street is not a joke. It's not a joke. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. These people will kill you. You see? So here, I think they understand that. See, on the other side, they are from Chicago. That's where the real bodies are. Okay? You see what I'm saying? He got Daley working for him. All right? You got, people from state legislature working for him. Emil Jones, who's black, who was head of the Senate in Illinois. He's like the number 2 man in Illinois. He come from the south side of Chicago. He ain't no chump. All right, you know where a whole lot of bodies are buried too. So these guys, and that's Barack Obama's mentor. You see, so you know what I'm saying? He's well protected at a level. So yes, they got a whole lot of stuff they're gonna send at him. But one of the beautiful things about this country, it's a 24-hour news thing, and the blog and the internet. You can't hide no stuff. If you're out in California, you say, well, they bitter because of, whatever, and then they go to the guns. And if that gets on, you know that anything out there at some point is going to get his hearing. You see. So I think he's protected to a certain extent. And then when I met this guy on the plane, he's saying, you will not believe, you see, the coverage that we got around him. We got more, like I say, more coverage around him than we got around the President of the United States. And I asked him, I said, well, has there been any serious threats? He said, no. He said, there's been threats, but nothing serious. You see, because, and he didn't go into any serious detail, but you say you do not understand, do not believe what we got around this guy, okay? Because they saying that if he's taken out, this becomes an international problem. International problem. Okay, let's take yes, brother, and then we go with the brother in the back. Go ahead.
Throughout your talk, you talked a lot about the community in different ways.
Yeah.
taking that somewhere else. At the very end there, you said we all need to be involved in creating our community, that sort of thing. I have a question. What is the community?
What is the community?
What is the developmental?
Community, right. Well, when I say developmental community, I mean that's the community, our community, who are brothers and sisters who are working each and every day, but need help. Say, for instance, I don't know what field you're in, but say your specialty. Just say your specialty is moving money. You know, say your specialty is moving money. Well, the great majority of us don't know anything about moving money. All right, don't know anything about the subprime loans. I'm saying, so you find a group of men and women who are in the business of saying, trying to say wealth acquisition. We need wealth, not wealth for Haki or Madhubuti or Haley Garima. We need wealth in order to maintain these institutions. In order to, let me just give you one example. I didn't tell Haley this. We had a break-in 3 weeks ago. The guy came in 3 times. Now the only reason he came in, we've been in this community for over 20 years. The only reason this guy came in, he's a professional thief, number one. The church that we sold right next to us, we're in a rectory, they're renovating. So the church is vulnerable. So the guy comes in the church, can't find anything, but between the church and our building are 2 doors. The church's door is open. So he comes in and breaks down our door. Boom. He got a gold mine. He comes right in there. He takes all the CD player, television, takes the computer out of the stationery, and then he gets out because he don't know what kind of. We don't have no alarm system. We in a safe zone, all right. So they come back to work the next day, and everybody's just demoralized, So I got to give a big back talk talking about the recession and all that stuff. The guy comes back the next day through the window in the basement, And then the third day, I went home and got my stuff and came back and stayed all night. I said, if he come back again, I'll be in jail because he's gone, all right? I stayed all night. I'm demoralized because this time he came and just wiped us out the first floor. Took 8 computers, broke down 3 doors, and everybody. So now I say, well, what am I going to do? Because I don't have that much. I don't have the money. I don't have the money to kind of, So I make 3 phone calls to 3 black men that I know got money. Okay? And within 24 hours, one of them sent us $20,000. You see? He's made money and he continues to essentially help throughout the community. All I'm saying, whatever your field is, whatever your expertise is, you can find black people who can need it. But the key point is we got to find black people who are serious. And the major people who are serious are those maybe from my generation who are not burned out, are young people. Young people. And for you, it might be best to find young people who are not as experienced as you are, don't have the background you may have, and work with these young people. The brother got to get home. You got to take me home. Oh, was there one other people? There's one other. Just one more question. That's the last one. Go ahead.
I just want to thank you for writing Plan to Plan. It's been really influential in my life, so much so that my children are in independent schools.
Oh, gee. Plan to Planet. Why don't you? These are catalogs from Thorough Press. This is a new catalog. So why don't you pass these out to everybody?
What's the artist website?
Artists and Writers for Obama for President.com, I think it is. But I'll get it to Haley Garima, okay? But Plan to Planet, that book was written in the midst of struggle. Those essays on Plan to Planet were written on buses going back between Chicago and D.C., Chicago and New York. And those essays were written because we were trying to find a textbook for this kind of struggle that we're talking about, okay? And so it has remained, somewhat valuable and it's a classic now. So thank you very much. Thank you. Really, look. And let me invite y'all to Chicago. I don't always do all this talking. Come to Chicago. Come and see. You're invited. Come see what we've done. We got this major festival coming up in, well, 2 weeks. We call it Bronzeville Cultural Festival. We're bringing A.V. Brooks in and Lynn Whitfield and a few other people, because we do film, we do books, and we do, what else? Film, books. Oh, art, visual art. And then over 10th through the 12th of July, I'm on the board of the National Conference of Artists, which is the largest association of black visual artists. We're doing a national conference in Chicago also.
All right, once again, thank you very much. But please give it up for Brother Haki one more time. There's several books here, but we have one that's prominent around here, and the brother's going to stay around for a little bit to sign these books. Please make sure you pick them up, and Brother Haki will give you a signature. Also, we're going to pass around a donation. We're going to try to take it back a little bit to church so that we don't get a bottleneck up here. Pass around a donation. Whatever you can give, we greatly appreciate. Also, please look into our organization. Again, DC chapter of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, so we can keep bringing more and more people like Brother Haki who are really about change and just not talking about it. Also, that we have a email list. Please sign up so you can get our email blast. And once again, thank you so much.
And thank you to the DC Alliance for Black School Teachers. As David said, they're trying to do something here in DC, and I hope that they were very much inspired by what Haki was saying. And I would like to also let you know something about what we're going to be doing here while you're getting your thoughts ready for the book signing, etc. We're having next tomorrow, as a matter of fact, at 3 o'clock, a Juneteenth activity sponsored and implemented by Adasi. It's going to be Tendai doing a presentation on the history of the slave routes, and Aza Zenga is going to be assisting. And then also we have a really nice treat coming up the following Saturday. That's going to be a brother who did the film. I don't know if you guys have seen Music is My Life, Politics is Music is My Mistress, Politics My Life. It's the story of Oscar Brown Jr. The filmmaker is going to be here. And that's going to be at, I believe, if you have email, check your email. Is it 7 o'clock? Okay, 7 o'clock, but check your email. If you're not on our email list, please do sign up in the back. But that should be a real treat, because evidently this filmmaker has done a lot of things. He's into recreating some of the radio shows that they did in the 40s and the 50s, that the Black Arts movements, or pre-Black Arts movement in the 40s and 50s. So check in and keep checking your email. Thanks so much for coming, and please feel free to come up front with your books.